among the natives? He said that, which, you know, that's fighting words to me. So I went off on him because I said, look, you don't even know your own history. As an Irish person, how you got here. Oh yeah, we were slaves. Yeah, right. To who? Oh, the British. Right. You were bought here as slaves along with us. That's part of your history, but you kind of suppressed that, right? So how has his beliefs been shaped? On what narratives? So, for example, when we talk about isms, you remember that conversation, yes? Mm-hmm. All right. Sexism could be the first ism, as the roots of patriarchy precede the roots of racism. The fact that Mary Magdalene could not become the successor to Yeshua is testimony to that. The fact that there has never been a female pope in Catholicism. Who do you think embodies more of the values of Jesus? Mother Teresa, serving the poor? Or the Pope who, when he visited her in Calcutta, gave her his $500,000 Pope mobile? You're doing such great work. She sold it, and yeah, thanks. So I don't really need a bulletproof limousine for helping the poor or gathering gold, which is closer to the spirit of Christ. All right. So after the subordination of gender, gender expression, and gender diversity begins the divisions based on class, social stratification can begin slavery, servitude, wealth, and poverty. Race can be added to the equation, building upon nascent, that is the beginning of nationalism. So people were discriminated upon based on national and geographic identity before race. So as part of the traditional canon rests upon its foundation on a storyline using the Latin alphabet and using numbers and calculation from Africa and Arabia. Now, the reason I started the whole class with looking at, okay, if you were going to write down your autobiography, what would you leave in? What would you leave out? What difference would it make later? Well, little differences make a whole change later on that people will start either talking about you after you've gone or make conclusions about you that are not true or any number of things, right? So just showing you a different part of the narrative. Look, you don't have to believe it. I'm just saying, here's my sources. I've made conclusions that the writers are not talking about. I told you I'm upfront about my agenda. Okay? So you can correct for my bias. But I'm just saying, look, here's the sources. You got a book list. You can go look at this stuff for yourself if you want. Construct your own narrative. But here's my narrative. I want people free of discrimination. That's part of the agenda with the class. I'm saying, like I told you before, what was once done to us because of race is now being done to you for the money. Best be aware what the game is. Right? So, as an example, we talked about algebra, yes? Remember that? Really? Yeah? What does algebra mean? Checking for comprehension. Here's why this is important. What's next? Where does it end? What's after Z? Nothing? What's before A? Nothing? Okay. So, if we're going to do logic, I don't encourage you to do this, but I'm going to admit it because here's what happened. I wasn't that great at math. So I challenged the logic final to get out of taking math for my BA. Okay, and in California, when you do that, it's presumed if you can pass the final, you pass the class, and if I pass logic, then boom, I don't have to take algebra. Did it? Okay, so in logic, here's why I'm saying this, right? In logic, you have proposition A, basically, which is a statement of fact. But, okay, so Columbus discovered America. Let's say that. Columbus, that's your logical proposition. Well, there is A prime, which is only in logic, which is the proposition upon which A rests. Wait, Columbus discovered America, that's your logical proposition. So A prime is, well, what was there before Columbus got there? Oh, nothing? Well, wait, there were people living there already. Indians? Wait, was that what they call themselves? No, that's not in the proposition, right? Columbus discovered America. There ain't nothing there before he got there. No history before 1492, right? See how the Western canon works on particular logic, right? The logic doesn't have to be true, just has to be consistent within the logic, all right? So this is the Latin alphabet, and you've seen how the progression goes from Comedian to, all right, we're going to only use 26 characters in the Comedian alphabet. That will be 1-to-1 with the Romans and the Greeks. Alpha, beta in Hebrew, alphabet. All right? So, Latin canon, Latin alphabet, using that story, but we don't tell you where the alphabet came from, or the logical propositions that preceded the alphabet forming. So we just start here. Columbus discovered America. Boom. Oh, well, he brought civilization. These people got discovered. He discovered America. He found Indians. The Indians didn't have civilization. So we discovered you. Now we're giving you civilization. Z. Wait, didn't they have civilization beforehand? Weren't there pyramids? Oh, well, that's not in the narrative. Okay, so what's next? And how is that? Etc. Right? Okay. Well, where do we use Roman alphabet, Roman numerals, except in outlines? Besides outlines, where do we use it?
Super Bowl.
Super Bowl. Good. Yeah. What else? Music, yeah. What else? Notice the credit roll at the end of movies. The little fine print, and they're basically giving the date that the movie was made in Roman numerals. 20th Century Fox, 21st Century Fox. Well, look at the end of, now, next time you see a movie, look at the credit roll and wait till they say, oh, MC, M, 1000, MC century, MCM means 19. Okay, MM1, 21, or 20th century. 2012 would be like let's see, X. Yeah, well, check it out. Okay, the end of a credit roll. Okay, so these are the only places we use Roman numerals. You don't use Roman numerals to balance your checkbook. Why? I mean, maybe you never thought about this stuff. And I don't, spend late at night doing that, but here's the point, right? Algorithm, this is not inventing the internet or now a statement by Al Gore. It means calculate using Arabic numerals. Well, why are we using Arabic numerals? Why not Roman? Well, because the Romans didn't invent algebra. Algebra, right? The mending algebra, okay, which is partially basically the images of a broken stick. Equal sign unites it. What you do on this side, you got to do the other side. What you do above, you got to do below. It basically goes along that whole concept of Al-Mizan, the Big Dipper, the scales. You got to resolve for justice. So the idea is here, in terms of the traditional canon, there is no narrative to explain why in Western civilization we're using Arabic numbers. Why aren't we using Roman numbers? Part of the explanation is Rome fell, and then begins what's referred to as the Dark Ages. So this suggests, for example, multicultural origins, except that the non-white racial origins of the technology of calculation have been obscured. So indeed, in following the storyline, females made no contribution to building the culture other than being an integral part of procreation. Right? Who, if, for example, I'm a scientist, who are the female scientists before, well, how many female scientists can you name? Let's start there.
Mary Curie.
Mary Curie. Okay, good.
Margaret Mead.
Okay, anthropologist, good. You know, you guys are not stupid. Okay? But notice this. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and say you're not sexist either. But how is it, are there any scientists before Madame Curie? Female scientists. Right. So, like I said, you're not stupid, and until this moment, you probably wouldn't have questioned it. Now, by the end of the class, you'll be able to not only name women scientists, but black women scientists, and et cetera, et cetera. So here's the piece that happens with this, right? So it's not in the Western narrative, though it existed. So Hypatia, I'll give you one. Of Alexandria. So that tells you where that is. By all accounts, she was quite a looker. Not that it matters what she looks like, right? But she was brilliant. She came up with several original theories in mathematics, in particular algebra. Because her father was a famous mathematician as well. And she came up with original theories in mathematics. She was a scientist. So you would have to go back actually to Hypatia, about 3rd century AD in Alexandria, to even find a woman scientist in history. And you've never heard of her. Okay? Tawny in complexion, like Cleopatra was, according to Shakespeare and others. Black woman, scientist, mathematician. Beautiful and outspoken. Killed by Christians, stoned to death. Why do you stone to death a mathematician? What's so radical about that? And early Christians, too. Well, anyway, check out her story, Hypatia. So between Hypatia and Madame Curie, there was no women scientists? Kind of stretches the imagination. Margaret Mead, you can do her. I'll give you another one, Candace Pert, though that's more germane to my addictions class. Candace Pert. She wrote a book called, actually a couple of books, about the molecules of emotion. Candace Pert discovered the opiate transmitter in your body, which gave us the theory of neurotransmission, which is now how we know drugs work. In 1971. And her story is interesting in terms of looking at science being kind of like a boys' club. Because they tried to steal her idea. And her idea was, okay, this chemical, this opiate receptor, this endorphin, fits into this receptor in the cell like a lock and key. Well, she said, well, it's not like a lock and key. It's actually more like they don't touch, but the neurotransmitter comes in contact with the cell or in proximity to the cell, and they have this kind of dance, and it causes the cell to sing, and the cell starts making other enzymes and proteins, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That was a little too complex for the boys, so they said, okay, it's like a lock and key. But she's saying, okay, so these molecules are the basis of our emotion. So the idea of, following the storyline, females made no contributions to building the culture other than being, part of procreation. So Hypatia of Alexandria. Mathematician, philosopher, astronomer of the Neoplatonic school. About 370 to 415 in the Common Era. So, Madame Curie. So again, I'm teaching you to be suspicious. Yeah, be suspicious of me, but be suspicious of the storyline too. So Madame Curie, Hypatia, Polish-born French physicist and chemist famous for her work on radioactivity. So is this possible? No. Well, the idea is historical erasure. Civilization, democracy, government. Who has it, who made it, who can make it, who can participate in it, and whose participation is crucial. So, I have been jumping around, right? But to kind of tie all this historical stuff to now. Doesn't matter that you're not Christian. You can see this entire process happening with other religions too, as well as the Abrahamic religions, as well as Buddhism, or any narrative. So I'm going to do some jumps. So Eve and Lilith. And we're not reading in Kelly just yet. But Eve and Lilith, the foundations of whiteness, and also the white roots of peace that was here. So here's what's hidden. You'll find a physical description in a couple of places in KJV. Daniel 7:9, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. So what is the texture of wool? Coarse. Curly, not straight, not Michelangelo's uncle, right? 10:6, and his arms and his feet like the color like polished brass, or bronze. Because we can basically look up, did brass exist then, or is it more recent invention? Would they be talking about that or bronze? Because we're talking about, this is closer to the Bronze Age. And brass, well, they know brass in England in 1600s. Just check that out, that's all. And his head and his hair were like wool, as white as snow, and his feet were unto like fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace. Well, burning in a furnace doesn't make things white, so, what are they saying there? So both contradict the Michelangelo depiction in the Sistine Chapel. So you'll find the church will describe Mary Magdalene as a prostitute, though the Bible never refers to her in this fashion. And Jesuit scholars say, look, she was a rich woman who supported Jesus, wasn't working as a carpenter, so how are they able to travel? How are they able to escape the Romans? Well, with money. And if she's able to go have dinner with Caesar, poor woman can't do that. So, even Lilith. So in an effort to explain inconsistencies in the Old Testament, there developed in Jewish literature a complex interpretive system called the Midrash, which attempts to reconcile biblical contradictions and bring new meaning to the scriptural text. Now, remember, before they were written down, these were oral stories. Not only is the hero the teller of the tale, but each tale teller puts their own spin in it. So what if you got hundreds of them? They're telling the same story, but there's differences. You're going to put them together in one book. Whose story do you put in and whose do you leave out? Who makes that decision? I mean, whether you're Christian or not, I mean, you've got to think about, okay, I'm writing a holy book. How do I do that? Where does the book come from? Do we use the most popular stories? I mean, you don't believe in Santa Claus anymore, right? But there was an actual Kris Kringle at some point. I don't know about the Easter Bunny. I don't know about the Tooth Fairy, but okay, there's a narrative. These things came from somewhere. All right. So, Midrash in Hebrew means to interpret Scripture based on a complex meaning of the language, because the words can mean multiple things. And Jidrash in Arabic, which, again, since they're sister languages, means basically the same thing. Midrash in Hebrew, like its counterpart in Arabic, Jidrash refers to the ability to personally interpret Scripture according to the inherent variability possible in the sister Semitic languages. And this will show up on either a midterm or a final near you. There will be an acronym that says You can replicate the A's in any order you want, just so that they're all there. Aramaic, Arabic, Amharic, and Hebrew. A single word can have multiple meanings, thus any given scriptural passage derived from these languages can have multiple literal, relational, and metaphorical meanings designed to be interpreted in the mind of the listener or reader. In Yeshua's time, not everybody, of course, was literate. So, employing a philological method and often an ingenious imagination, Midrashic writings, which reached their height in the 2nd century in the Common Era, influenced later Christian interpretations of the Bible. So, inconsistencies in the story of Genesis, especially the two separate accounts of creation, received particular attention later, beginning in the 13th century. Such questions were taken up in Jewish mystical literature, known as the Kabbalah, which obviously existed before Madonna discovered it, right? According to Midrashic literature, Adam's first wife was not Eve, but a woman named Lilith, who was created in the first Genesis account. Only when Lilith rebelled and abandoned Adam did God create Eve, in the second account as a replacement for Lilith. An important 13th century Kabbalic text, the Sefer HaZohar, the Book of Splendor, written by the Spaniard Moses de Leon in 1240 and 1305, it explained that at the time Jehovah created Adam, he created a woman, Lilith, who like Adam was taken from the earth. Basically, they're both made from clay at the same time. She was given to Adam as his wife. But there was a dispute between them about a matter that when it came before the judges? What judges? So if we're following the narrative, okay, these two humans are created. So I'm making the assumption from the context. These two humans are created together from clay. Male and female created he, him. Right? God created in Genesis. Right? In those days. And then there's judges. Wait, the judge is human? How are they judging a dispute between Adam and Lilith? It ain't explained. Okay? When it came before the judges to be discussed behind closed doors, that implies buildings. Wait, this is the Garden of Eden, right? She spoke the unspeakable name of Jehovah and vanished. Now, if you know anything about,